Good afternoon. Welcome to another conversation at the table. I'm Chad Bresson, and I am the lead church planter at the table of Los Fresnos. How is your Monday going? How's your work week started? Are you at work? I hope you are at work. If not, are you sheltering in place again today, like the rest of us? What has today been like for you, and what do you plan on doing with your week? The grass is a little greener here at the Bresson household. We had a little bit of rain over the week, so that's always good news. But another week of sheltering in place. And plans for the week include doing more of the same. Probably feels much like the same for you, right? It's day 34, and again, still waiting for another more opportunities to serve, more opportunities to be involved in the community, and we're always looking for those. In fact, we're making some plans for those, but for now we are sheltering in place. I don't know what you do with your days while you shelter in place during the week, and if you go off to work, you probably have a little more of a routine than some who don't, but I know there are many out there that they're working from home, and so they're not really going anywhere during the sheltering in place. So did you wake up this morning with the thought that I did, and you begin to thinking, are we there yet? Is this really happening again? And it's one of those things where you remind yourself, oh yeah, we're still living under shelter in place. Things aren't back to normal. It's in those moments then you start to feel like, hey, is this a dream? And if I just pinch myself, we're going to wake up from this dream. Have you felt that kind of surreal? I've felt that a little bit today, and I know in talking with some people, not just over the weekend, but in the past week or two, I've talked to people who have expressed similar sentiment and similar feelings, similar feeling of it just being surreal and it just being a dream, and then the comments made, I can't wait for it to get back to normal. And the reality is, neither can I. We'd all like to go back to normal, to go back the way it was. The desire to go back to normal, again, as we've said already in a conversation, that is normal, that's human. It's not good to dwell on that, but that is a thought that we all have, because we all have had our routine. We all had what we call life, and that life does not exist like it used to. And so our internal mechanism, our internal clock, our internal schedule, we just want it to go back to the way it was, and that's okay. I do want to talk about today, though, just a little bit, in referencing some of what I've been reading online, some of what I've been hearing with my ears and observing. Some of this comes through a conversation that I had with Luke over the weekend. Luke is graduating this year, and so life for him has been turned on its head. And I want to talk today a little bit about what we do when life is turned on its head. Luke is a senior, and so he's graduating from Los Fresnos High School this year. And we were talking over the weekend, and he was just kind of ruining the fact that, he's not going to have, there's not going to be a prom. There's not going to be a senior skip day. There's not going to be a baccalaureate. There's, at this moment right now in May, probably not a graduation ceremony. And if there is, it's still not going to be like the ones that we've participated with, like for his sister a few years ago. It's different for seniors. Life has been turned on its head. I do feel bad for him. I feel bad for the 900 others that are in the same boat here in Los Fresnos. Their senior year is nothing like a senior year that they have ever seen, we've ever seen. It's different. Now, my reaction to him, though, was just think, someday you're going to be able to tell your kids, 2020, when they're reading about 2020 in their textbooks, he'll be able to say, hey, that was me. Your dad lived through that. I've been there. And so looking at it as, hey, this is an opportunity now to learn along the way, learn what the experience is like. And then when you're in those situations in the future where life has been turned on its head, you can help people. I know the school administration is working hard to make some of these things happen. But again, the reality is things this year for Luke and for his classmates, much, much different. Yesterday we looked at Noah in Genesis chapter 7, and our guy Noah had life turned on its head. He had a lot of upheaval. Life was different for him. He was probably turning 597 or 598 when he was first approached by God. I mean, that's a long time. Those guys lived a long time back then. He was approached by God and said, hey, God, we're interrupting things here. And over the next 2 years, he builds a boat. His family gets in a boat. And then the world just comes unglued with rain and water. Here's what the word says in Genesis 7. Again, this is happening because man was very, very evil. Humanity had become so evil that God had said, okay, we're done. This is enough. And he decides that he's going to start over with humanity. This is what Genesis 7 says. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the sources of the vast watery depths burst open. The floodgates of the sky were opened, and the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. That's a lot of upheaval. A lot. Literally, upheaval. The ground bursts with water. There's a lot of questions as where did all that water come from? We're told later that it actually got to be about 20 feet above the mountaintops. Where's all that water come from? Well, a lot of it came from below, and some of it came from above. But between above and below, the whole thing, just the whole earth just comes unglued, comes unhinged. You know, you look at the space shots of the earth that we have, those pictures that have been taken by people in orbit or people on their way to the moon, and then all the other things that we've launched out there that take pictures of the earth. You see this blue ball, this blue planet, and you realize what's creating that blue, that water. That's water from the flood. That water came from underneath and from up top. There's a lot of upheaval, and it's interesting, in the midst of upheaval, Noah doesn't really do anything differently other than some of the things we're told about. You know, he builds a boat. He spends his time building a boat. When he gets off the boat, it's the same Noah. The Noah that goes into the boat, again, as we're reading from Genesis 6 all the way through Genesis 9, we have this character, this man that lived back then named Noah. It's the same Noah. The Noah that went into the boat was a guy who was a preacher. He was an architect. He was a general contractor. He did all this. He did that before the flood, and then after the flood, we see him involved in some of the same activities. And along the way, his faith has been challenged and bolstered. And in chapter 9, then we see him again expressing faith and trust in the promises that he had been given. And that's where he hangs his hat. And when the world is in upheaval, that's where we hang our hat. God's promises. Noah had God's promise before the flood. I'm going to flood the earth, but I'm going to save you. He had his promise after the flood. I'm not going to do this again. Go fill the earth and multiply. And then Noah expresses in a series of events through his sons, he still expresses this faith that God is a God who keeps his promises. So when we have life turned on its head and we feel upheaval, just remember that our God is a God of promises. And He is a God that you can bank on, you can count on, so much so that you can continue to do the things that you've been doing all along. So I encourage you, if you find yourself involved or having these thoughts of this is a dream, it's feeling surreal, and that begins to create anxiety, there are some things you can do. You can continue to be active, continue to do the things that you do, continue with your routines. Routine is important. So be active. Have your routine. When I say be active, continue to do those activities even around the house that are normal for you. Also get exercise. Get out and get about within the social distancing guidelines we've been given. But take a walk, ride a bike. Do those things outdoors. Get away from the actual shelter piece for a time and give yourself a break. If you find yourself with acute anxiety, I encourage you to let somebody know. There are lots of resources. We've got those resources. Contact the table. We'll put you in touch with somebody. But don't disconnect. This is not the time to be disconnecting. This is the time to stay connected, to stay active, stay in a routine, and again, hold on to God's promises in the midst of upheaval. We're not promised that everything is going to go back to the way it used to be, but what we are promised is that God has us. Jesus has us. Jesus died for this moment. Jesus rose for this moment. He rose for you. And those are promises that we can bank our sheltering in place lives on. So that's our conversation at the table. I encourage you, leave your comments here. If there's something you'd like us to talk about here on the conversations, leave those there in the comment section as well. If you've got a prayer request, feel free to message us off the site. We got a message box. Send us a message. We'll pray for you. And check out other conversations that we've had. Just scroll back up or scroll back down through the Facebook feed, and you'll see some of our other conversations. Also, I encourage you, Thursday, we have a Bible study, a Zoom Bible study every Thursday at noon. We will provide you with the meeting ID, and we can provide you with a password. It is password protected. That's for your safety and the safety of the Bible study. So with all that, I hope you're having a great Monday. And again, rest in Jesus' promises. He has you. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, stay home, but be encouraged. Jesus has you. We're loved by Jesus for the love of Los Fresnos. Have a great afternoon.